Hi, my name is Christopher, and I'm going to be the negative constructive against the affirmative that Miss Alexandra Gutierrez formed. Now, the affirmative that Miss Alexandra Gutierrez formed is pretty sound, but I did find some flaws in there. The first flaw being in advantage 1, sub-point 3. Sub-point 3 being that mining the moon for water would ensure a backup supply in case the water on Earth is compromised. Now, one of the issues I have with that is how long would it take to mine and transport said water from the moon back to Earth? I mean, are we talking 10, 15, 20 years? I mean, how is the water situation here on Earth to look like in that time span? Could the situation at hand be resolved in that time? I mean, to say that the mission would take a minimum of 10 years, in those 10 years, could we have developed technology so advanced in the areas of plumbing and agriculture that resolve any water shortages here? And not just shortages, but any water that's compromised, that's contaminated? I think that going back and forth from the Earth could prove problematic in terms of like spending money and wasting potential fuel that we could use for other missions. Now, another flaw that I found in Ms. Gutierrez's affirmative would be in sub-point 4, which is knowing we have an emergency source of water from the moon increases feelings of security for citizens. Now, is that water to be stored here on Earth, or is it to be stored on the moon? Which again brings up the point, if it is to be stored in the moon, how are we going to get it here on Earth in case of an emergency? It's not going to be instant. That water isn't reachable. It's not at hand. So again, that brings up the point of missions going back and forth. How much fuel are we to waste? How much time are we to waste? Because the moon isn't just right there. We can't just go there in a month and come back next month. It takes at most a year. Which brings up my disadvantage, which I call the environment. Now, subpoint A. Our space shuttles use a special chemical propulsion system to launch. Now, this system uses an excessive amount of liquid nitrogen along with other chemical elements, according to a post NASA published in August of 2000. Now, subpoint B. The mission would most likely take a numerous amount of trips to the moon and back to Earth, to the moon, back to Earth. To attain a sufficient amount of water. Sufficient being an amount that would leave citizens here on Earth feel secure. Now, subpoint C, with all these missions going back and forth being to the moon and back to Earth, transporting the water, NASA is going to use an immense amount of chemical elements, depriving the Earth of these natural energy sources. Not to mention the effect all this propulsion would have on our atmosphere, on our ozone layer. Over time, over these numerous missions, the effect that the propulsion will have on our ozone layer could prove to be disastrous. Maybe not instantly, but gradually over time, as these missions continue to take place, our ozone could rip apart. Holes could be made, and in time, our atmosphere could fall. Now, subpoint D, with all these repetitive missions, it's only going to be harming our environment, either from, like I said, harming the atmosphere, the ozone layer, or the earth itself from depriving it of all these natural sources and all these natural elements. Now, another flaw that I found would be in advantage to subpoint 4, when she mentions mining the moon for helium-3. Now, are we allowed to mine the moon? Mine being physically altering the exterior of the moon. You know, do we have does the U.S. have the permission to do that? I mean, no one owns the moon. And to say that, you know, we're going to do this and we're going to acquire this and only we are going to be able to use it, that's going to prove to be a problem to some nations. You know, if we go up there and mine the moon of helium-3 and bring it back and use it for all this technology, all this advancement, you know, we're going to look to be kind of power hungry. And that doesn't come off as good. So to say that, you know, that it's going to be us that benefits from this could prove to be, again, a problem to some of these nations. And yeah, those are the flaws that I found to be in Ms. Gutierrez's affirmative.